Okay, so in this set of notes, we're just going to be talking a little bit about the vocabulary that is used when studying the actual muscles of the human body. So you'll definitely want to take notes and write these down because they're really going to help you as you start to actually study the muscles themselves. Okay, so basically there are three types of muscle. You got the smooth muscle, which is in the internal organs. You've got the cardiac muscle, which is in the heart, and the skeletal muscle, which is actually attached to bones. And those are the muscles that we're going to be learning first. And then in the next kind of muscle unit, we'll be talking about the other ones, but you'll be learning each of the skeletal muscles, or most of the skeletal muscles, I should say, of the human body. Okay, so it's important to understand, especially when you're learning the individual muscles, how those muscles actually interact with each other, because it kind of helps you learn the names and where they are and what they do by understanding how they work together. So, for example, all skeletal muscles work together or in opposition to each other. So, your biceps and your triceps, they're working in opposition, pulling your arm in different directions. So by saying that, muscles only pull. They don't actually push. What you think would be pushing is actually the opposing muscle pulling. Muscles shorten. The insertion generally moves towards the origin, and by origin, we mean closer to the point of attachment. So, like your bicep, for example, the point of attachment is at the shoulder, so that would be the origin. So it actually shortens and moves towards the origin. And whatever a muscle or group of muscles does, there is another muscle or group of muscle that undoes. So they always have somebody that's opposing that motion. Okay, so we have what are called prime movers, and these are the muscles that contract that cause a movement. And then you have its antagonist that opposes that particular movement. Now, if you'll see in that picture, in the top picture, the biceps are the prime mover. So, okay, you're doing some curls in the gym, let's say. Your biceps contract, and they are then the prime mover. Your triceps are then the antagonist, so they are opposing that motion. But then when you straighten your arm back out, it's the triceps that are causing that your arm to go down, and your biceps now become the antagonist. So just because they're the prime mover in one movement, in another movement, they might not necessarily be the prime mover. They might then be the antagonist. You have also what are called synergists, which they add force to a movement, so they kind of help other prime movers and do what they do, or reduce undesirable or unnecessary movement. And so they're also kind of similar to a fixator, which is a synergist that is immobilizing a bone or another muscle in order to add stability. So, for example, when you make a fist, you actually have muscles that are stabilizing your wrist bones so that they don't move. So if you were, say, punching somebody, or maybe, punching a punching bag, you're making a fist and your whole arm tightens up. So you've got muscles around your wrists tightening up and stabilizing your wrist. They might be stabilizing your elbow, stabilizing your shoulder. So you've got lots of fixators happening in just that one movement. So, learning the names of all the muscles can be very complicated, but if you start to learn why they're called those names, it starts to make a little bit more sense. So they're named usually because of the location where they are. So you'll usually all the name, like the brachii in the arm, are all kind of the same. They're named for the shape of the muscle. For example, deltoid means triangle, because it's kind of a triangular shaped muscle. How big they are, so relative size. So maximus is a very large muscle, minimus is the smallest, longus is a long muscle. The direction of the fibers, so rectus are fibers that run straight, transverse and oblique, they run perpendicular at an angle. Okay, so then we also have, are they parallel? Do they have spindle-shaped muscles? different names for the fascicles, how many origins they have. So a bicep has 2 origins, tricep has 3 origins. The location of the attachments, so at the point of insertion or origin, so you pay attention to that when you're learning them. So you look at, okay, where does this attach to? So therefore, what's its name? And then also sometimes the action. So is it a flexor or an extensor or something along those lines? Okay, so we also have muscle actions that we'll be talking about. So an adductor moves a limb away from the midline, where an adductor moves it towards the midline. An extensor increases the angle of the joint, where a flexor decreases the angle of the joint. A pronator turns the limb downwards, where a supinator turns the limb upwards. And these are just a few. And if you go to that website listed there, you can find a detailed list of muscle actions and then individual muscles and what their action would be. So I encourage you to do that if you want to know more about these actions. We'll be studying a few of them in class and kind of get a better idea of what each of them do.